Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the PokerNews podcast. I am your girl, Sarah Herring, joined by Jeff Platt and Chad Holloway, coming to you from all across the world with the latest and greatest from the poker industry, from the poker space. We've got an awesome show for you today. Chad interviewed Hank Azaria, who is famously known as the voice of many characters on The Simpsons, and they're going to talk a little bit about this sick charity poker tournament, which actually there was tons of like A-list celebrities in, and I really hope we can keep that trend going and hope that they really want to do interviews, video and podcast interviews with us just to raise our clout a little bit. Now, Jeff, for those who are watching, last week you surprised us with a stand-up desk. This week you've got some new artwork going on in the background, which just continues to showcase your love of this great game.
Yeah, and a real art guy also, Sarah, just a pure collector of the poker art that's available for us who do love the game so much. It's like for those listening, it's like a green ace of spades, which really doesn't make that much sense, but there are a couple more pieces that are aligned with this. We're going to show all the aces. It's going to be great. It's going to be absolutely
very
fantastic background next week.
Like when you bring a girl over, it's like the ultimate bachelor pad artwork. And I'm with you too. Don't worry. Like I've got AC/DC and Johnny Cash and stuff. So just welcome to, we're all living in our own personal bachelor pads. Chad, for those who don't know, has like $18,000 in decor behind him of things that are collectible. I'm fairly certain. No one can hear him though. He's muted.
Chad, I can't hear you.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys.
There we go.
You can hear me now. Yeah, it's like a little comic book story in here, and I know that sounds probably a little dorky to some people, but you would be amazed at how many people I bring into this room who are just enthralled with it. But it's I've had it's not as bad as you would think to other people, I guess.
If you were going to rob one of us, you would definitely want to rob Chad. Just so you guys know. He lives in Wisconsin.
That is certainly true.
Don't come for us.
Okay.
My setup changes every week.
Yeah. But you're out of bed? You've been in bed for the last couple.
Oh,
so
Mama is walking on her boot. Like literally tears of joy. Tears of joy, you guys. A couple days ago, I decided to just shoot the lock off and try to do some walking, and I managed, to walk from the kitchen to the bedroom. Next day, it was like, gangbusters, basically. 3 days into it, I went to the grocery store. I went to the grocery store on Sunday. So
whoa.
I know. But when I went to physical therapy yesterday, the lady said, you might want to pump the brakes a little bit. Like, I think you might be pushing it a little bit. Your foot looks like a sausage right now. But
I got this.
I'm just super excited, you guys. Things are happening. We're moving and shaking. I'm in my old office, just like a different angle. This takes me all the way back to the early days of 2019. All right, so outside of Hank Azaria, we've got a lot of interesting stuff to talk to you guys about. Do you want to start, Chad, with this GGpoker $10 million guarantee?
Yeah, so GGpoker and the World Series of Poker are currently holding the online circuit event, and there was a high roller event that was pretty impressive. I mean, you're looking at a 505 player field with 2.1 million up top. And coming out on top of that field was Costa Rica's 800-522-4700. Now, that is a phone number, and it is actually pretty funny because it is the phone number for like a problem gambler hotline. I don't know the exact, like the National Problem Gambler Association or something. Takes down the tournament and defeats Patrick Leonard heads up. And this is one of those events where it kind of snuck up on me. Online events have a tendency to do that just because there's so many of them. And I looked at it after it was over and I thought, wow, there's almost 2.2 million up top for this tournament. If you have a live event that's awarding that much money, it captures the attention of the entire poker world. So definitely a big one and a tremendous success, in my opinion.
Yeah, and how about Patrick Leonard finishing in second for $1.6 million? And then he tweeted afterwards, second in a good game, high roller for $1.6 million. 6 day twos starting in around 5 hours. So going to get some sleep. I mean, that guy grinds like no other, and he and his people, his stable, whatever you want to call it. I mean, they are all over the map. That is so impressive, Chad, for GG to not only throw it out there that, hey, we're going to have a 10 milli guarantee for a 25K, which is a pretty high buy-in price point. I don't care what the turnouts have been like over these last couple months. And then just smashing it with 505 players with more than $12.3 million in the prize pool. Sarah, it's just like, it feels like GG is just continuing to take over the poker world.
It's interesting to me to think that you can put a 25K online and get that kind of response. For whatever reason, I just feel like things play a little bit smaller for the most part online when you're talking about tournaments. And so I think that's super incredible. But I'm curious what you guys think, especially. So Chad, you probably have a better perspective than any of us on this sort of, since we're all covering online tournaments now in a different way, how does it change the game to not, for a lot of the players, know who they really are? Does it like change your ability to really sort of invest in people, or do most people really know who everyone is already, or like how is it changing the landscape of live reporting?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You have Party Poker who have associated real names to their accounts in certain tournaments, which has, I think it removes all that aspect. It makes it a lot more clear from a live reporting aspect. It makes it a lot easier because we get to report on real players, who they are, as opposed to some mysterious screen name. You want to know what I'm blanking on high rollers right now, like a Fedor Holes is doing, as opposed to Lucky Card Runner 212 or something like that. So I think having live names, real names, is imperative from a reporting aspect, from an interest aspect. Now, when you have a field that is mixed, we know some just through history of real players who have associated with their screen names, but there are a lot of mystery players, and it just doesn't have the same oomph, if you will, especially if it ends up being a final table full of no names or screen names that we just don't know. I'm always in favor of getting real names, but I do understand the player's perspective. Some of them want to keep that private for various reasons. Maybe it's tax reasons in their home country. Maybe it's because they want to remain anonymous to try to keep an edge. They might be known as a great player live, but nobody knows who they are online. So they get a little bit of edge by keeping it a secret.
It's a great example to just look at that 25K final table at GG. When we saw a similar 25K at Party, we would see, some of the names Chad mentioned, like an Ali Mshurovich, Alex Foxen, and it drew a lot of interest. GG still relatively new. We still don't really know who everybody is. We know who Patrick Leonard is, but you look at that final table and that's it. I'm just assuming in a 25K, we would recognize the names of some of these other 9 players, and it'd probably make it more interesting to watch. But, I think maybe all online sites are moving in that direction eventually for these high roller tournaments that are going to be put on for entertainment purposes.
And you mentioned, I think last week, Jeff, that you guys are doing some streaming of tournaments and games where you're doing the whole cards, like, obviously delayed, and that I think GG is also doing that. And yeah, I'm hoping that that's sort of a transition that we're making, just again, as a media movement, that we're going to start, streaming all of these events like that. And I think that will be really interesting for us and for players, and fans alike.
Yeah, so next week is Party Poker's and Poker Central's Super High Roller Bowl Online Series, capped off by a 100K main event. And so we're actually going to do the broadcasting from the PokerGO studio for it. There's an incredible setup that the tech guys have worked really hard on, and I think it's going to bring something that's very unique and very innovative, and it's going to look like an online broadcast that you've never seen before. So we are super, super excited about it. And Sarah, to be honest, and Chad, to be honest, I'm just excited to just get out of the house and go somewhere. PokerGO Studio, that sounds awesome. Let's go. I'll see you two there. You two are more than welcome to join.
Well, while we're on that topic, okay, let's talk a little bit. We touched briefly last week on the possibility of, and also some casinos and card rooms opening already. And since then, even more have joined in the cascade and flood of opening. Do you guys want to give me the latest? Give me the news. What's happening? Are we all going to die?
Go for it, Chad. Break it down.
Yeah, it's happening in the United States as we speak. We're recording this at around noon on Tuesday. I would expect, within the next 12 hours, there'll be several more rooms making announcements. I know a lot of the Florida poker rooms have plans to open. Some of the rooms are releasing more information than others in terms of rules that might be in place, whether that's playing five-handed, six-handed. I know some places have announced that. Others are playing full nine-handed. Some are requiring you wear masks. Some have procedures in place to clean the chips and other things. So it's kind of just a hodgepodge based upon card room to card room. And, it's scary in one regard. It's exciting in another that, poker rooms are starting to open again. I, for one, am not going to be in a rush to head back and be playing right now. I love poker, obviously, but I just think it's maybe a little too soon. There are a lot of casinos opening that aren't even opening their poker rooms. They're going to open up slot machines and follow the advice by their states. Poker might open down the road, but as we have talked about in the past, it's a dangerous breeding ground for germs to spread. You're touching the same chips, you're touching the same cards. So I think it is cause for concern a little bit. And if you're going to go to a casino and play poker, if it's allowed, just be smart, be safe, and take as many precautions as you can.
Yeah, I think to Chad's point, if you're running a poker room or if you're going to play in a poker room, don't you at least want to see how the quote unquote reopening of the country is moving along? Like, don't you at least want to give it a couple weeks and see how other entities are starting to open? What's the amount of cases look like as far as coronavirus is concerned before rushing back to a nine-handed poker table setup? I like how last week, I credited a lot of casinos on the strip just like for really taking their time and really taking a step back and just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then I think right after we stopped recording on the podcast, I saw the Caesars Palace CEO was like, yeah, we want to open up by the end of May. Let's just go. Let's get after it. Let's go. Now, as far as poker is concerned, I still do think it's going to be a while before we see any poker on the Vegas Strip. Part of it due to the Nevada Gaming Commission saying, hey, once casinos do reopen, you can't only go four-handed. And with new cleaning procedures in place, it's going to be a lot more expensive to run. We've talked about this 1,000 times. Poker is already kind of bottom of the barrel for the casino as far as profit margins are concerned. So I do still think we have a while for Vegas poker. But hey, if you want to play live poker in the United States of America, you can find a place to do it now.
I'm finding all my good news and gossip from the Instagram or the Twitter. And in fact, I don't generally find a lot of, when I just go to the search function, I don't find a lot of poker related content just in the general world. And I just saw one yesterday that was a picture of 4 people playing at a table and saying like, we're back open. And then of course someone's snap response, very clever and witty, was, maybe if you have to do that, you should just wait it out. Like maybe if this is what it looks like right now, it's an indication that we should pump the brakes. But to those who are out there and just, gunslinging and getting after it, I wish you absolutely the best. And if any of you guys, any of our listeners or fans have gone out and played live poker and have a story or an experience, please, good Lord, let us know. Get at us on the social media. I'd love to hear, what it was like. And of course we all are gamblers and we all love this game. So, more power to you. If you did it, please tell us what it's like. We want to hear real stories. In the meantime, I do quickly, before we move on to some of the other, May is just crazy, y'all. There's like so much really sick poker going on right now and so much content. It's really exciting. Generally speaking, Memorial Day weekend, we're headed to Vegas. It's the beginning of the World Series of Poker. And I think we all thought, RIP, WSOP, what are we going to be doing? In the meantime, there's so much exciting stuff going on in the poker world. And I, for one, am just eating it up. But let us give a shout out to our sponsors, GGpoker. And let's let the man, Daniel Negreanu, give us the lowdown.
What's up, people? Dean Eggs here. As you may have heard, I signed on as an ambassador for GGpoker, and you may be wondering why. Well, the key reason is the product, okay? They have the absolute best software on the market, not just the desktop, but also for mobile. In addition to that, they really have invested into this GG Masters, right? It's a $150 buy-in freeze out. You know how I feel about freeze outs. And there's also a big carrot at the top. Leaderboard prize up to $500,000. Each and every week so far, there's been added money. So come get yours. Use sign-up code PokerNews.
Well, we talked a little bit about GGpoker and their series, which has had incredible turnout and, posting huge guarantees and meeting them, which is, we can definitely say poker is not dead. And again, the Scoop, the same thing. They put up some massive guarantees. They've had huge fields and turnouts, which isn't really surprising. Of course, I think, everyone looks forward to the Scoop every year. But at the time of taping, the main event is chugging along. This is, of course, the one that we all wait for. We've seen some incredible champions come out of this. Charlie Carroll won the Scoop main event. I want to say João Vieira won. I'm trying to think. But 2019 and 2018 was won by the same guy, which is absolutely insane. Gosh, I have to find his name again also. It's a very fun one to say.
Yes, Giuseppe.
Like, Berorero. Gosh, I just was making a video about this, you guys, but absolutely incredible to win back to back. I mean, that's just so astronomically crazy, especially for a Scoop. And right now, there's a ton of sickos still in the field. It looks like Michael Gaffey is leading the way. This is one of those guys that I think a lot of people don't maybe think of him as a boss crusher, or he's so quiet, he's so subtle, he just flies under the radar. Meanwhile, I want to say, does he have 3 bracelets? I feel like he won 2 in one summer and then another one, and I was like, who is this guy? He came back like every year winning another bracelet. So I'm not surprised to see his name. But let's talk a little bit about some of these other crushers just looking to capture this title.
There are crushers across the board for sure. Michael Adamo is in the mix, Thomas Boyven. And then from a pure entertainment standpoint, not only do you have those guys and Daniel DeVoris and Ben Tollery, but you also have Lex Veldhaus and Spraggy, who are 2 of the biggest streamers in the game. So they are off and running at the time of taping this podcast. They are in day 3 with just 40 players left in this 10K main event. And, that's just, as we say, good for the game. Lex will have a tremendous amount of viewers. I saw Spraggy had 6 or 7K watching him yesterday. I mean, PokerStars has to be thrilled with all of this, including the turnout, 609 players, prize pool of more than $6 million. So this is shaping up to be a pretty good one. Gianluca Speranza, the defending champion.
There we go.
Speranza. Yes. Fun tournament. Great turnouts.
I said it with an accent, I think, too, in the video I made. It's just really hard not to. It's so
Perfect.
Cute. And you know what I love about Spraggy, for all of our audience out there listening, who may or may not know about all the juicy gossip, but that's what we're here for, is to give you guys all the dish. So Spraggy and Marley Cordero are dating. Marley Cordero, was a model in New York. She's like just basically so smoking hot. Also really smart. I mean, all the things basically. But, I just have to say, for poker players, it's like, it really gives us all hope. Spraggy's dating Marley Cordero. Like, anyone, you guys have all the chances in the world, to really just bag yourselves a gorgeous model who also happens to be really smart. If you're just fun and charming and intelligent, and I don't know, whenever I just stalk them on Instagram because I think it's so cute, and I think it gives us all a chance.
Well, Chad, you and I are both fun, charming, and intelligent, right? I'd say those are the 3 words that people think of when they think of Chad Holloway and Jeff Platt. So I think we'll be fine. The models are flocking to us just because of quarantine. They haven't quite arrived yet. I think that's what the issue has been so far.
I think I need a Twitch channel. And then it'll all fall into place.
You got to get internet famous, dude. That's what it's all happening. Which I love, by the way. My nieces, because you can see videos of me on the internet, they think that I'm famous. Like, they tell their babysitters and stuff that I'm famous. So I have this little gap right now where they're young enough that they don't really realize that I'm not important or anything. But you guys can use that same tactic and trick. You just tell people you're on the internet, and I think you guys could bag yourselves a model as well.
But Sarah, I would say you're pretty high on the level of like poker famous. I mean, it'd be
but they don't know
hard
anything
to
about
find
poker.
somebody in the poker world that did not know who Sarah Herring was. So I think they'll still, when they come to the realization, of what they're actually watching, I think they'll still be impressed with Auntie Chardonnay.
Yeah, I hope to think that too. I hope my daughter someday thinks that I'm very important and famous and a very big deal. Likely not, but if she likes poker, maybe, and I hope she does. Now we've talked a little bit about there. Gosh, you guys, when I look at all of the tournaments going on and all of the action, it's really pretty crazy. Let's talk a little bit about the Party Poker WPT. Again, they're just crushing it.
Yeah, I'll handle this one. The WPT Party Poker is one that's actually using real names, which is great. And the main event there is been a big success. Got 2,130 entries for a prize pool of nearly $6.4 million. Beat the the 5 million guarantee. And as of this recording, there are 35 players remaining, and of course, it's a familiar face up top in Mr. Sam Greenwood, just a guy we've all covered for many years. Doesn't surprise me to see him on top of the counts. Won't surprise me if he ends up being the last player standing, but he does have some tough competition. Some of the names that I recognize on the leaderboard are Max Silver, who is in chips. We've also got some further down the line, Simon Higgins, Nicholas Jadlika, and Emma Zajmovic. I know I just butchered that. Yeah, I mean, I know the name. I just don't ever say it out loud. Others still in contention, Ami Barr, Benny Glazer, who has been on a heater online recently. Martin Jakobsen, you might know him from winning the 2014 World Series of Poker main event. So plenty of star power remaining in that tournament.
And how about Max Silver? Makes the final 35, makes day 3 of the WPT, and is also in day 3 of the Scoop 10K main. It's lining up for him to have a pretty epic week, I would say.
And also, I just love Max.
And he's great. Yeah.
He's just building a little family.
Nice,
such a sweetheart. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit then as we continue on this Party Poker just bandwagon. I actually had no idea this was happening or anything really about this. Party Poker US Network Online Series. This sounds like a memo that went bad or something. Like, what's going on? What is this?
Yeah, I'll tackle this one because I actually arranged the coverage we're doing for this for PokerNews. So this is only in New Jersey, despite the US Network Online Series name. This will eventually grow into a US network once more states legalize and Party Poker expands. But as of right now, it's just taking place in New Jersey for players located inside the Garden State. And it is part of the network of 3 sites that are there: Party Poker US, Borgata Poker, and BetMGM Poker. They're all the same entity, kind of different skins, all combining player pools for this. They just wrapped up this online series. It was a 21 event schedule. It took place over the course of a week. And the cornerstone, the big event, was the main event. And that was $100,000 guarantee, $400 buy-in. Ended when the King 411. Now you see what I mean by reporting the screen names? It just doesn't have that same oomph. But he took it down for over $21,000. And our coverage of the Party Poker US network is going to continue this week. They actually just started a mini series, which is devoted to the low and micro stakes. Now, this is kind of, it's not going to capture headlines by any means, it's micros, but it's an interesting opportunity for us at PokerNews to give some love and exposure to players who might not be able to afford to play in a $400 buy-in event or more. We're going to be covering some events that are, the max event is $20. So I think it's going to be really cool to give some of these players some time in the spotlight, to be able to point to the updates and say, hey, there I am. This is the hand I played, and share that with their family and friends. And I'm also excited to say that PokerNews is going to cover what I think is the smallest buy-in we've ever covered, a 25-cent tournament. We're going to do some live updates for it. Now we've covered free rolls and invitationals and things like that. But as far as a legit pay some money to buy in, it's going to be a quarter, and it's going to be wild. It's going to be a lot of action, a lot of rebuys, I'm sure, but it's going to be fun and one for the PokerNews history books.
Is that one, Chad, that you're putting the rookie on? Whoever the newest reporter is, they get the 25-cent assignment?
Yeah, it's definitely not a lot of pressure, so we don't need the A team, so to speak, on it. But whoever it's going to be is certainly going to do a good job. And that mini series just started today as we're recording this. It's going to run through Sunday the 24th. So if you happen to be in New Jersey and want to fire that up, head on over to the Party Poker US network and you can get started.
Okay, I have another question for Chad. Chad, are you a bit surprised that it's taken Party Poker a while to expand their US network. I'm just curious as to why they aren't in Nevada yet. They aren't in Pennsylvania yet, for example.
I guess, yeah, am I surprised? Yeah, a little bit. I would think they would be chomping at the bit to make it happen. And I'm sure there's a lot of hurdles that I'm not aware of, and it might not be as easy as it seems. But I do like their approach in that they seem to be obviously taking things slow and at least setting a solid foundation in New Jersey on which to expand. So we see this network of online sites. Now that I'm working a little more closely with them, I'm really seeing an expansion of the efforts that they're making, not only online, but also live, because what you had seen prior to the pandemic was that the MGM properties on the East Coast launched the East Coast Poker Tour, I think it was called. And it was supposed to encompass events that were taking place at, Borgata, MGM Springfield, and, another one, National Harbor. And they had this whole leaderboard thing worked out. It was going to be pretty exciting for a new tour launching. Of course, the pandemic came, all the events have kind of gotten canceled. So who knows what that's going to do. It certainly threw a wrench in their plans. But the fact that they were embarking on that shows me that they do have big plans for the United States and for expansion. And hopefully when things get back on track in the live realm, they can pick up right where they left off.
I'm always curious what the profit margin is, in fact, in most of the places in the US right now, what it takes to sort of monitor and maintain, first of all, the relationships with the land-based casinos, but then also, just all the stuff that goes into making sure the security and all of these various elements of running an online site. And I sometimes wonder also if maybe that a lot of it is just getting set up for the future day when everything, is unleashed and all of the US can again play online, and, that they want to be set and already in regulated markets and already ready to go and fire, versus I'm just wondering how really profitable it is to move you really have to move an entire piece of your organization to the US, I think, if you want to be running the sites like that, which may be just ultimately a long-term goal.
I just think you see, probably even now, you see, to your point, Sarah, the kind of light at the end of the tunnel. What's worst case in 10 to 15 years, I'm sure, we'll have at least 10 states who are able to play online poker, likely with the players in other states like WSOP is doing right now. You can play together with the people in Nevada, in New Jersey, and Delaware. So I think that even that is good enough for Party to start to attack. And the reason I was curious is just because I've heard about Party Poker entering Nevada for, I guess now, 3, 4, 5 years or so. It's just taken them a while. And to Chad's point, there are probably some hurdles there. I just think at the very least, it's such good PR for an organization like Party Poker to be in the United States. And once live events come back, they can have the East Coast Poker Tour and be affiliated with that. They can have other things that they can be affiliated with. They can have TV deals in the US, looking way down the road. And so I know it's coming. I'm just curious as to why it's taken a bit longer than anticipated.
Jeff, you said enter Nevada, and this is going to be a quick shift to a different topic, but it spurred my memory. Something I want to quick touch on that we didn't have on the outline. It was a small piece of news that happened last week. There was a press release put out by the Hard Rock International that they acquired the intellectual property rights to the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas in a deal with Juniper Capital. Seems like a kind of not exciting, another casino corporate kind of acquisition nobody would get really excited about. But what is exciting about this to me, and I hope to a lot of people in poker who might have ventured down to the Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida, is that this now opens the door for that company, the same company that runs that property, as well as Hard Rock Tampa and others, to now open a Hard Rock branch in Vegas. Now, you might be thinking there was a Hard Rock in Las Vegas, and that's true. But that Hard Rock, because of this deal, was, prior to this deal, was a different kind of brand or entity. They might have licensed out the Hard Rock name. I'm not quite sure of the specifics, but what I do know is because of this new deal, Hard Rock now has that back in their control. They can now come into Las Vegas, and I, for one, as a big lover of the Seminole Hard Rock in South Florida, get pretty excited to think that they now have the path to open a similar venue in Vegas down the road. So that could be just something to keep in the back of your mind. I'm sure it'd be many years from now, but pretty exciting nonetheless.
Well, and we've seen at the Seminole and also in Tampa that they are invested in poker. And we know famously, of course, our boy Tony Burns, who, you know, has been one of the best tournament directors, I think, or at least he's one of the best tournament directors that I know, and has brought a whole slew of exciting sort of new poker tournaments, testing all, you know, new variants, new levels. And I think if we can get another casino in Vegas that's deep into this poker game, it would be great for all of us. Be a bonus. We could use another one, is what I'm saying. Also, it was Hard Rock was probably my first, I think it was my first time playing live poker was at the Hard Rock. Like on a Sunday when they had the rehab thing or whatever, there's some like big drunk thing at the pool, and drunk people were just coming in and splashing around. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like easy. And then I didn't realize actually it's actually not that easy. But if you go to the Hard Rock on Sunday, maybe it is. Maybe it is for everyone. Well, let's talk a little bit about another site that doesn't currently exist in the US, but that I think all of us would love to get a taste of and try on. Run It Once. What's happening with the challenge? Jeff, give us the latest and greatest. If you do or don't know, I'm sure Chad knows if you don't.
Yeah, well, thanks to Chad, Mo, all the writers at PokerNews, you know, I'm able to like at least fake that I know what I'm talking about. So this one, just to refresh y'all's memory, it's Phil Galfond versus Action Freak. They're playing 15,000 hands of 150, 300, pot limit Omaha. Their side bet is 150,000 euros. It's even. Galfond not giving Action Freak any odds. They played almost 10,000 hands so far, and it's been a good start for Phil Galfond. At the time of taping this podcast, I do think they are playing right now. We're taping this on a Tuesday, but Phil Galfond is up more than 160,000 euros. So he does seem to be in complete control, at least as far as this match has gone so far. And, you know, Sarah, just while we're at it, we got to shout out our friends at Run It Once for the fantastic work that they do. We appreciate their support. You can go to once.run/PNPOD for an exclusive deposit bonus. If you want to jump on Phil Galfond's site, which is getting more and more popular, you can see why. They have the cool avatars. They have the great rakeback system. They're just, you know, they're one of these up and coming sites. Unfortunately, Sarah, you said it, can't play it in the US, but if you are outside of the US, once.run/PNPOD for an exclusive deposit bonus for our Poker News podcast listeners. So check out the man himself, Phil Galfond, and check out his site, Run It Once.
You know, the Galfond challenge, we've been talking about the online screen name situation. Interesting thing happened with the Galfond challenge and the screen name. So this challenge was Galfond versus Action Freak, right? That's the online screen name. Well, this ended up getting played a little bit on Party Poker, where they use real names. And so it was revealed because of that, not voluntarily from what I understand, that the online grinder in this challenge is, and I'm going to butcher this as I always do with these Greek names especially, Ionis Kontantanasios.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Close enough. But yeah, I feel kind of bad for the guy. Like he probably wants to remain anonymous. They go and you know, boom, there's his name for the entire poker world to see. So it's out there now. It's public knowledge in the public domain. And, you know, it is what it is, I guess. You kind of got to deal with it at this point.
Well, and if you're going to be part of a challenge, which is clearly, I mean, Phil is doing this, I have to assume he's doing this for marketing, right? Which is a great, brilliant strategy. But if you're going to join, you know, or try to participate in what is ultimately a giant marketing campaign, you can't be super mad if who you are ultimately comes out. That being said, I am curious what you guys think about, so Phil initiated these challenges, right? And then sort of came in and was doing terribly. I'm not sure how to say this in a nice way. And even he made a big statement sort of saying, you know, I have to relook at my game, and this is like come as kind of a surprise to me or a shock or whatever. And now has come back and it has been really crushing, like doing fantastic. And the timeline in between these two sort of occurrences is we're literally talking about a difference of a couple weeks, and not even like maybe even a week or so. And I'm trying to understand, how does one just brush up their game so much in such a short amount of time? Or do you think it was just, he just was running really bad? Or what do you guys think is the explanation for that?
Go for it, Chad.
I mean, I'm really good at putting bad analogies, so I might as well just use a bad analogy here. It's like sometimes a guy doesn't get laid for a long time, Sarah, right? And so when he finally does, maybe it just doesn't last very long, or he doesn't bring his A game. He doesn't lay it down like he should. But you give that guy getting laid consistently for a week or two, and then he's back in form. He's back and is bringing his A game. He's putting it down. He's bringing the pleasure. So, I think that's what Galfond's at. He's bringing the pleasure.
I don't know how I can follow that up. So yeah,
I'd say
next
we just
topic.
go ahead
I think
and
you nailed it. Yeah,
leave that one and
literally,
say
figuratively,
Chad.
whatever.
Chad has that
I
analogy.
left you guys satisfied.
Yes, you did.
Oh, good, great. Well, I for one, it's been a great story, I think, and it's reaffirming especially for people who've been in the game for a while, to just know, like, it's never too late to make a big comeback. And Chad, I did see earlier, I want to say it was maybe in the Slack channel, just a little bit of talk about what's going on with this Postle movement. And actually, my husband was telling me this morning that they're doing a trial live on Zoom today for the first time ever, and that I should check it out because you guys know I love true crime.
Yeah.
But you were saying that they're going to be sort of having like a phone call available for media in relationship to this case. So kind of catch us up on where we are.
Sure, yeah, it's the Mike Postle situation, the cheating allegations. And yesterday they had oral arguments in court, but it was via Zoom, like you just mentioned. Yeah, given the world that it is today, they're doing things virtually. And so what it was the judge, the defendants and their lawyers, the plaintiff, represented by Mac Verstandig, all got on Zoom, had their oral arguments. And it was open to the public in a call-in line, meaning you could call in and listen, and you couldn't, participate, but you could still hear what was happening. So I tuned in and was live tweeting basically what was happening, anything that was interesting, and did a Twitter thread as it was happening. If you want to check that out, my Twitter is @Chad A. Holloway. You can also go to PokerNews.com. Right before we started recording this podcast, I went live with a PokerNews opinion piece with my thoughts on everything that had transpired during the call. I didn't time it. It lasted probably about an hour. And during this time, it was considering motions to dismiss. So you have Mike Postle, Stone's Gambling Hall, and Justin Karitis, who a former employee of Stone's. There are lawsuits against all three of them. They all filed motions to dismiss. Mac Verstandig and the plaintiffs responded to that. And now this was the opportunity for the judge to hear oral arguments regarding those motions. We didn't know going in if the judge would make a ruling, if he would either allow the civil lawsuit to proceed, or if he would in fact dismiss, or he could do what he ultimately ended up doing and did not make a decision. He's going to take his time to consider everything and will issue a ruling here further down the road. So we're kind of waiting. One of the big questions during the call was, will Mike Postle be there and will he talk? Mike Postle was there and he did talk, but albeit very briefly. The judge asked him if he understood what he was saying in his motion to dismiss, if he understood the legal arguments that he was making. The reason he was asking this is because Mike Postle is representing himself, and it is alleged in a different filing that he had the motion to dismiss ghostwritten by a lawyer. That is something the courts don't like. So he wanted to make sure that he understood the arguments, because when you're in court, you better understand what you're arguing for. You're going to get asked some hard questions. Mike Postle, in my opinion, seemed a little shaky or unconfident, but said that yes, he did, and that he would try his best. It was very clear to me that you had your professional lawyers like Mac Verstandig and the lawyers representing Stones and Karitis. And they were, they've been there before. They're professionals. And then you had a guy like Mike Postle, who's probably never been in a courtroom setting like that before, representing himself. It was clear that it was this divide of, the high roller poker pros, the lawyers who knew what they were doing, versus, a $40 buy-in local tournament grinder. So they proceeded. It got to the point where it was Postle's turn to talk. The judge asked him if he had anything to say, and Postle said, "No, thank you, Your Honor," and passed his option to talk. that was it. That was the last time we heard from Postle in it. And in all honesty, it was probably a really smart move on his part. By doing that, he basically says, I don't want to make an oral argument. What I wrote in my motion stands for itself. Because if he would have spoken and the judge were to ask him some questions he didn't know the answers to, it would have been, a bloodbath. It would have been probably pretty embarrassing. And so I think, the wise move for his own defense in this case was to just pass on that option and, move on. Obviously, it would have been more exciting for us to hear him say more, to tell his side of the story a little bit. That didn't happen. We might have to wait. It might not ever come out. I did look into the possibility to see if we could record some of this oral arguments to air on the podcast, but unfortunately that goes against the court rules.
Chad, let me first say that was a phenomenal thread on Twitter. I was following that in great anticipation of what was to come in a couple minutes. So Chad said it. You can follow him on Twitter at Chad A. Holloway to see a breakdown, and then you can see his op-ed on PokerNews. But something that I guess stood out to me, you seem to have had the feel that the judge was maybe a bit skeptical, and then once Verstande brought up the live streams and was like, hey, we can show you every single hand and what we lost and what happened, then he's kind of starting to come around, right?
Yeah, a little bit. It was certainly a highlight on the call for me in my interpretation of it. So with cases like this, if you're arguing you got cheated at a poker table, let's imagine we're playing in a home game where there are no cameras, there's no record of what's happened. It's hard to prove, right? It's hard to prove exactly how you were cheated, how much money was lost in a particular pot, if it's a rake game, how much was raked, and things like that. But when the plaintiffs said, hey, everything's on a live stream, we can go back, reverse engineer everything, the judge seemed, he perked up a little bit, like he was kind of impressed by that. The whole crux of the motion to dismiss, not the whole crux, but the big part about it, and what I think, in my opinion, will be the ultimate determination, is the issue of damages, right? So these guys got cheated, allegedly. How do you prove a damage in that? How much were you cheated? It's hard to say, right? So I guess if you say you lost your $1,000 buy-in, were you really cheated out of all 1,000 of it? Or is it just the hands? It's just this issue of damages, and it's speculative. And there's a lot of case law that argues against the judiciary getting involved in speculation when it comes to gaming cases and losses. So it's how this ultimately plans out, as I said in my op-ed, I think is kind of a coin flip. I could see them allowing it to proceed. I could see them dismissing. There are good points made all around. I think the one thing that, at least in terms of damages that the plaintiffs have going for them, is the rake, that they can prove how much was raked in the hands because they know how many hands were played. They're all on live stream. That is a number they can calculate and show as a definitive damage. And for that reason, they argue the case should be allowed to proceed. We'll have to wait and see. Like I said, it's really a 50-50 in my opinion, an ace-king versus small pocket pair sort of situation.
It's interesting though, because there certainly also are, and we know this because, I mean, especially outside of tort reform, but if you're looking at lawsuits, for example, which I guess are not in criminal court, but in like personal court, but in lawsuits, right, there are tons of what they call like multipliers and things like this. So you can start with whatever number you want. Like, okay, I got in a car accident and, this was the amount that it cost for my car to be fixed, right? But then you have emotional damage, or you couldn't work for 2 months or whatever. There are certainly, it's interesting to me to think that a reason to dismiss would be that you couldn't find the exact amount of money, when really there are lots of other cases where they multiply amounts of money or subtract amounts of money, or like emotional damages is given some sort of value, a monetary value or something like that. That's really interesting. And also, is it just me, or should he just get a lawyer? Why doesn't he just get a lawyer? What is happening? Like, this is a very big deal, right? And it could be, it could cost him a lot of money, or it could cost him freedom, or lots of things. I'm just trying to understand why someone who's as intellectually capable, I think, as he is, wouldn't just go ahead and shoot the lock off and get some representation.
Yeah, I think in this case, this is being the civil matter that Postle is kind of piggybacking off of Stones and Caritas, who do have lawyers and have money behind them. They are separate, but they also are on the same side or same team, if you will, at least in as much as that they're fighting the plaintiff's side of things. Now, there is an investigation ongoing in California that's a criminal investigation. We don't know the status of that, whether or not it will ultimately lead to charges, but it is still out there. So there's a possibility that even if the civil case is dismissed, that we could see some criminal charges down the road. But then again, the possibility exists too that maybe there are no criminal charges, the civil suit gets dismissed, and Postle walks away from this whole mess scot-free, minus the tarnished reputation.
Does this at all make you want to be a court journalist? Like does it ever make you just flirt with the idea of kind of transitioning into, a more legal type job?
Well, I transitioned from a legal situation to poker in the first place. I went to law school at Tulane in New Orleans for a year back in 2007, I guess. So yeah, that was the plan, was to be a lawyer, but transition to poker. Now, to transition back, I don't know about all that, but I do enjoy it was a unique situation yesterday to be able to listen in on a court proceeding like that and report it to the poker world. So it's definitely something I'll be keeping an eye on. And if there are future opportunities, be it in this case or others down the road, certainly would love to be a part of that.
Wow, Chad, I didn't even know that about you. All right, well, we're almost time to get into Hank Azaria. I'm excited to hear, Chad, a little tease of what you think about this interview. But beforehand, we are going to do our weekly Value Town. We're going to take you on down to Value Town. This week, it is the 888 Deep Stack. So we're getting towards the end of the schedule. All things are gearing up towards and getting excited for the main event. But on May 22nd, they're offering 3 tiers of buy-ins. $16.50 for a mini deep stack with a 20K guarantee with 10-minute levels, $55 deep stack with a 30K guarantee, 12-minute levels, $33 late deep stack with a 15K guarantee, 10-minute levels. We're talking 100K starting chips, 12-minute levels, up to 3 rebuys allowed, satellites for $5. I guess they must be, it feels like, taking a little taste of what we love so much about the scoop. I love the idea of offering a few different price points, a few different buy-ins for various different bankrolls. And these are some solid guarantees, especially from 888. So we would suggest this week, if you're looking for some value, those seem like some great tournaments to jump into. Again, May 22nd, check out those bad boys. And now, Chad, before we get into Hank Azaria, I need to know, Jeff, what went down with keeping the lights on?
Keep the lights on. So entering the final week of the Keep the Lights On initiative, which just as a refresher was put together by Tana Haley and the Run Good team, along with Poker Central and Global Poker to just help out some of our friends in the poker media freelance world, some of whom, had their future income just ripped away from them with this crisis going on. We were able to raise about $26,000 or so with donations still open. So we're just absolutely thrilled about that. And I know Chad at PokerNews, along with some of the guys from the World Series of Poker and the World Poker Tour, are already distributing those funds to the people who need it. As far as the challenge went, there was a side bankroll challenge between me, the Golden Blazer, who was Global Poker's representative, and Jamie Kerstetter, who was Run Good's representative. I was down about $860, not dollars, sweeps coins, wink, wink, on Global Poker going into the final week. And we'll somehow, some way, guys, manage to pull off the comeback to become the side bankroll challenge, whatever you want to call it, champion of the world. So everybody who donated to me gets to play in a free roll where 3 seats will be up for grabs for the Run Good All-Stars Pro-Am tournament at the end of the year, hopefully the end of the year. at the PokerGO studio. So I was excited about that, especially excited because towards the beginning of the day, I had a deep run. I needed to finish second. I ended up finishing fifth, and I saw this video of Golden Blazer on Twitch, and he was taunting, he was talking trash. And I was like, all right, man, you want to go? You know, LFG, let's do this. And then was able to beat him by the end of the night. So just felt good. Cashed in, I think 8 tournaments out of 30 overall. So that sent, you know, $4,000 or so to the Keep the Lights On fund. So everything was good. Everything was good in the Keep the Lights On initiative.
Story of redemption, and especially because you're not going to get to play the World Series of Poker main event this year and do better than your like 32nd finish. I feel like this is the one for you. Now, Chad, I haven't heard the interview yet. I am excited to hear it. Give us a little taste and throw us into what we can expect from you and Mr. Azaria.
Yeah, this is a very exciting interview for me. Hank Azaria is, you know, he's up there in Hollywood. He's been around the industry for a very long time. You know him from The Simpsons. If you've ever watched this show over the however 30 plus seasons that they've had, does a lot of the voices, more voices than anybody else on the show. Some of my favorite characters like Chief Wiggum, Mo Sislak, Professor Frank, Bumblebee Man, Sea Captain McAllister, the comic book guy, and happy to say that Mr. Azaria did do an impression of one of those I just listed in the interview. You have to listen to see who, but yeah, we talked a little bit, you know, of course, about The Simpsons, about his career in Hollywood, but we talked about poker, why he loves the game so much, and of course, the Keep the Lights On charity event that just raised over $1 million. So it was really great for him to take some time out of his day to chat with us at PokerNews, and really happy to share that with the listeners.